Wednesday. I hope you've enjoyed all of our sessions to date, and we have a few more great ones. We like to at least somewhat consistently have committee updates so that you can hear about all the great work that our committees do. We've got hundreds of volunteers. You've heard a lot about some of what's going on during our concurrent sessions, but we've asked a few of our committees, as you can see here, to provide you a more detailed update. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Melissa for the research compliance update. Michelle and I, if we have time, we're going to give you a few more in-depth details from an executive committee standpoint of updates, primarily around our meeting in May and our executive director search. But if we run out of time, don't fret, we will be back. You'll see our faces again later during our closing plenary. So go for it, Melissa.
Sorry, it's actually Jamie first with communications.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's right. Sorry, Jamie. I'm already messing it up.
No problem, and I won't take too much time, but I wanted to give everyone an exciting update. But first, hi everyone, I'm Jamie Sprague. I'm from Cornell University. I am the co-chair of the website working group, which is underneath the communications committee. And I wanted to give everyone just a quick 2-minute update on our efforts thus far to do a massive modernization to our FTP website. So FTP is contracted with Vanguard Communications, which is a public relations firm that supports both nonprofit and government entities. And we've been working with them to do just that, to modernize our website. So largely this effort has been spearheaded by myself, Stephanie Scott from Columbia, and Sarah as well here. And so we're looking at modernizing our website to increase the longevity, make it more adaptable to FTP as we continue to grow both our membership and as our needs continue to expand and change. Modifying some of the organization of the site to make it a little bit more user-friendly, and looking at that verbiage and ways that we can really use our website to meet the needs of faculty, of our administrators, of our federal representatives, and also our non-FDP members. We're also looking at it using this as an opportunity to review some outdated documentation or copy that does need some updated, improve just overall user experience, and also create a member login where we'll have some tools and resources a little more readily available for those who are more active in the institution, or maybe who want to get more involved and have the ability to really publicize some of that, maybe in a way that's a little more forthcoming and able for all of us to access. So to date, we've been working with some core stakeholders on this effort, including the executive committee, as well as a couple people that we've identified to represent those different stakeholders. We have a working draft right now. It hasn't been published yet, that it has been shared with some of those representatives from each of those 4 categories there. And we've sent out an initial call for their initial feedback as we continue to work with Vanguard on really finalizing and polishing sort of those high level pages to make sure we're hitting all of our strategic needs and the needs of the entire community. So next steps is going to be for us to finalize that and start backfilling all of this information, moving everything over to new servers, working on integrations with all of our resources and tools like the expanded clearinghouse, and make sure that all the technical side works before we're able to launch to the whole community. So we are being very thoughtful about this work, but we're also very excited to launch this as soon as we can. I do expect to have further updates for the community at the May meeting. If not, with any luck, a website actually to launch and share with everyone. So wanted to give everyone an update. If you want to reach us and have any feedback that you'd like to share, please feel free to reach out. We are happy to accept that, and we're looking forward to wrapping this up for everyone.
Great, thank you, Jamie. Does anybody want to raise their hand or post a question in the chat about our website? Okay, well, thank you on behalf of all of membership. This website is sorely needed, and we're very much looking forward to it being rolled out. So now I can ask Melissa for research compliance to discuss her committee.
Thanks so much. And Jamie, just to reiterate the excitement, having seen a little bit of a sneak preview, everything is really looking great. So really looking forward to when you're able to launch that website. So hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Korf. I'm at Harvard Medical School, and I'm the co-chair for the Research Compliance Committee. Next slide, please, Sarah. I thought I'd start with just a little bit of an overview of the structure of the Research Compliance Committee and the subcommittees that are included. So we have our Animal Care and Use Subcommittee, which is a relatively active subcommittee with the CUSP, the Client Compliance Unit Standard Protocol project that you'll hear a little bit more detail on Aubrey from a little bit later. That overarching subcommittee is co-chaired by Sally Thompson-Iritani and Axel Wolf. I think I mentioned at the September meeting that we were so grateful to Ara Tomasian for his many years of service to this subcommittee. So this is actually Sally's first meeting as the co-chair for this subcommittee, which is really awesome. We also have the conflict of interest, which is co-chaired by Amanda Humphrey, Lindsay Spangler, and Diane Dean. Data stewardship, co-chaired by Chris Martin and Jen Welch. Our newly rebranded research security subcommittee. So this was, the subcommittee formerly known as export controls, and it's been rebranded research security, a little bit in reflection of the broader office that traditional export control offices and officers are now having to take in developing and running research security programs. And that's co-chaired by Doug Backman, Mark Sweet, and Lisa Nichols. And our human subject subcommittee with Deb Murphy and John Ballman as co-chairs. Next slide, please. Since this was one of our first meetings in the virtual setting, at least, and because we've only had virtual meetings this phase so far, so it was the first opportunity that many have had to experience concurrent sessions and the often very difficult choice of which one do I go to? We thought we would also provide just a little bit of a recap and overview of the various research compliance led or subcommittee sessions that happened during the concurrent sessions. If any, this is a meeting session, so if any of the subcommittee chairs or moderators or other folks, remember something of note from those sessions and want to chime in, please feel free. But our conflict of interest subcommittee had a great breakout session to talk about a demonstration that they're in the process of developing. We talked a little bit about the goals of the demonstration, which is a survey of COI offices, or rather COI processes. There's some recognition that not all institutions are structured the same. There may be a COI office at a large, research institution that has kind of the staffing to set up an office to deal just with COI issues, or it may be a distributed responsibility at other organized institutions. So trying to develop a set of questions that recognize the breadth of possibilities that are out there at our member institutions, and trying to collect information just on how processes are set up, what does the burden look like, are you doing transactional versus, annual disclosure forms, how are you connecting the dots, just trying to gauge a lot of information. Still in a demonstration or a survey that's under development, but really looking forward to that coming together and the results that we'll be able to explore together. We also had a session on responsible conduct of research. This isn't necessarily related to any one particular subcommittee under research compliance, but a topic of great interest currently, I think in part because of some of the language in the CHIPS and Science Act, but also as a result of the pandemic and some of the changes related to the medium of delivery as a result of the pandemic. And at my institution in particular, at least, we've recognized that Zoom has this interesting equalizing effect where we're surprisingly potentially getting more engagement from participants in RCR training than we did when they were in an in-person classroom, in an in-person setting. So we discussed, had a presentation regarding RCR standards across a number of federal funding agencies, trying to create a matrix of all of the different requirements, some of the upcoming changes as a result of some of the regulation, as well as just coming back from the pandemic and what happened during the pandemic, and how FGP can assist institutions in preparing to meet any changing requirements. We also talked about some potential collaborations with other professional organizations, such as ARIO and POGR. FDP isn't an organization that comments on developing regulations. So how do we partner with our colleague institutions in order to sort of maximize our impact? Next slide, please. So today we had two additional breakout concurrent sessions. The first one was data stewardship, which was an interactive brainstorming session, developing a list of hypothetical case studies on the use, handling, and sharing of data, particularly hoping to use these case studies to highlight some of the ongoing compliance concerns related to implementation of the NIH data management and sharing policy. We had a really great discussion on a variety of things, particularly, roles and responsibilities when there is a PTE subrecipient relationship. Can we create a resource to help PIs make sure that they're covering all of their bases with their colleagues and don't get surprised later where each thinks that the other one was going to do something? What resources can we provide for institutions to facilitate those conversations and make sure that roles and responsibilities are clearly outlined in the subaward agreement or through the process? A great interest in the DTUA working group, potentially taking up development of a data coordinating center checklist or agreement, or a draft repository agreement, sample repository agreement. So I'll take this opportunity to plug for the DTUA working group that they just recently released a survey via the data stewardship and the contracts listservs. So it's a great opportunity. That call was in particular for feedback on the original, single directional DTUA, but it also provides an opportunity to provide feedback in other areas, new documents that you'd like to see, if you want to add your vote for a repository agreement, things of that nature. If you haven't received a copy of that survey and you're interested, you can reach out to those co-chairs, or you can reach out to me, and I can help forward that along. My contact information is at the end of this deck. See, what else did we discuss in that one? Also, a lot of discussion about ownership, very complicated decisions sometimes related to the ownership of data, particularly when a PI transfers. So the original institution owns the data created at the original institution, but of course they're going to still need that data to make sure that they can finish out their research at their new institution. Or what happens when you put your data in a repository to that concept of ownership of the data? One scenario where then the repository or the data coordinating center switched institutions mid-project. How does that all play into this concept of ownership? And a conversation about potentially creating a working group to just first write a white paper enumerating some of the various issues so that we can kind of really thoughtfully start to tackle some of those. And most recently, ended up only about half an hour ago, our research security breakout session. And this was the inaugural session of this newly rebranded committee. Again, also the first meeting for Mark Sweet and Lisa Nichols, who are joining Doug Mackman in leading this subcommittee, and a really lively discussion about some of the upcoming research security program requirements under NSPM 33, as well as the somewhat newly announced NSF cooperative agreements for the research security training modules. The group, so Mark Sweet and Lisa Nichols, who are part of this group, are, Lisa's PI, and I believe Mark is a co-PI of one of the awards, and they shared information about how to sign up for upcoming listening sessions. And I just popped in the chat the link to the Qualtrics questionnaire if you're interested in potentially participating in one of those listening sessions. First of hopefully many really invigorating sessions to come from this newly rebranded subcommittee. Next slide, please. One of the other major initiatives of the Research Compliance Committee is our involvement, along with the Finance, Audit, and Costing Committee, on the NIH Data Management and Sharing Pilot. So first, a very big thank you to our NIH colleagues, Michelle Bowles and Kristen Ta, for their wonderful engagement in the plenary session that we had on Monday. We've just been so excited to work with them and their other colleagues in OPERA, OER, and at the ICs throughout this whole process. Just a really great opportunity to learn from them and share our experiences. And again, thank you for all of their time and helping to make Monday's plenary session a really great session. If you are interested in participating in the pilot, there is still time. If you're not, please express your interest by completing the Qualtrics survey. We have sent that out on the FDP main, and it will be in this slide deck as well, if anyone is interested in filling that out. We'll have 2 additional upcoming opportunities to hear more details. We had an initial planning meeting a couple weeks ago, and we've been getting some really great feedback from interested institutions since then that we're using to refine the participation agreement and the full details of participation. So these upcoming opportunities are going to be Friday, February 10th, noon to 1 Eastern, or Tuesday, February 14th, noon to 1 Eastern. Both of these, the intention is that both of these will include substantially the same information, so don't feel like you have to attend both. The differences will only come in terms of the questions and the feedback that we're receiving from participants. But we are planning to use all of that feedback to generate and publish a pilot FAQs. So if you're not there to hear a really important question, we're going to memorialize that in something that we're going to be able to publish for everyone's benefit. We're going to target sending the Zoom information for those meetings to those who have expressed interest in participation via the Qualtrics link that I mentioned above. So if you are interested, please do fill that survey out so that we have your contact information and can include you in further opportunities to learn more. Next slide, please. If you do have any questions about that NIH Data Management and Sharing Pilot, please reach out to the planning group via NIHDMSpilot@thefgp.org. It's the best way to reach all of us and make sure that we're able to get you a timely as possible response. If you're interested in more information about the Research Compliance Committee, I've included my contact information here. And of course, I encourage everyone to join the listservs and reach out to your colleagues using those listservs so we can keep some of these great conversations going. Next, I am so pleased to introduce Aubrey Schoenleben, I think is that right, who is one of the leads for our Compliance Unit Standard Protocol, or CUSP initiative, and is going to share with us an update on this exciting demonstration.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, everyone. I'm Aubrey. I'm with the University of Washington, and I am one of the co-chairs of the CUSP project. So this afternoon, my plan is just to give a really brief overview of what CUSP is and why we think it's beneficial to develop this tool, and then provide you all with an update on where we are. Next slide, please. So the goal of the CUSP project is to develop an online venue where participating institutions can share standard procedures that are used in animal research protocols. And this is one of the burden reducing initiatives of the 21st Century Cures Act. Next slide, please. And we think that developing this tool will have a number of benefits for our communities. So first and foremost, we do think it will reduce administrative burden for our researchers, as well as IACUCs and IACUC support staff, by decreasing the amount of time it takes to put together a high quality animal care protocol and get it through the review process. And we know from a number of surveys, including FDP's own faculty workload survey, that protocol preparation is often cited as a top contributor to administrative burden for researchers that use animals. So any tools or resources that we can develop in this space to make that process easier and go more smoothly, I think would have a good benefit. Additionally, this tool will be a nice way to support knowledge sharing within our own communities. So as an example, if Alex has a really nice write-up of a surgery that I would like to implement in my lab, there's no point in me starting from scratch. If she's willing to share that write-up, I can use it as is if that fits my needs, or I can use it as a really solid starting point and then modify that to fit the particular needs of my research lab or my institution. And so in a similar manner, CUSP can help institutions save time in creating their own libraries of standard procedures. And then lastly, we think that this tool will help to increase consistency, not only within a given institution, but hopefully across institutions as well, which I think is increasingly more important as our research environment becomes more collaborative. And it's kind of a nice way to support improved rigor and reproducibility by making the details of how those procedures are performed more readily accessible and transparent. Next slide, please. So where are we with this project? If you've been following along, this is probably a very familiar slide. I often like to use it because I think it provides a nice overview of where we've been and where we're headed. So we're currently in site development and testing, and we're in the last stretch of our beta testing phase. If you remember from our update in September, we recently brought on a new developer to help us transition our site over to a more modern technology stack, and he has done a phenomenal job of just jumping right in and helping us get to that finish line. We are actually right in the midst of what I am hoping will be our last round of technical testing. We have 17 individuals currently participating in testing, representing 13 different institutions. Our testing deadline was yesterday, so folks were supposed to complete all of their test cases as of yesterday. So I went in last night and just took a quick peek, and at first blush, it looks like we had about a 60% pass rate, which is great. So now we're kind of in the process of just reviewing all of those test cases that didn't pass, validating any issues that were identified, and then passing those on to our developer to address. Next slide, please. So at our current pace, I am anticipating that we'll be able to wrap up beta testing over the next couple of weeks, so hopefully by mid-February. And from there, we can move on to the pilot phase, which is exciting and long anticipated. So I just wanted to share with you some of the plans we have for that phase of the project. Next slide, please. So the goal of the pilot phase really will be to assess more of the qualitative aspects of the site. So questions like, is the site user-friendly? Do you think this tool will help reduce administrative burden at your institution? Where to date, we've really been focused more on the technical side of things. So I'm anticipating that we'll be able to start the pilot at the tail end of the first quarter. So most likely in a mid to late March would be my guess. We're going to be looking for 15 to 20 FDP member institutions to join the pilot. And we're asking institutions that do join to have at least 2 individuals participate. We want 1 individual from the institution to serve in the role of the designated member or the designated institutional representative. This is a really critical role in the system. It's a read-write role, and this individual is responsible for maintaining procedures and user accounts for their home institution. And we also want someone to serve in the role of the community member. And so this is a read-only role that we have in the system, but we're anticipating that it's going to be the most common user role. So we really do want to get a lot of different eyes and perspectives on that role just to make sure that that's working as expected. So we are hoping that during the pilot phase, institutions will be able to interact with the system in more of a real-to-life sort of way than they have been in the technical testing, which has been very prescriptive. We will provide some general guidelines or structure, though, to that interaction, most likely in the form of a checklist of different actions that institutions need to complete over that pilot phase, or we might try to infuse a little fun and have like a bingo card or something that institutions can complete. We're still kind of working through the details there. But throughout the course of the pilot, we will be collecting feedback from users in the form of surveys, as well as Fresh Desk tickets. Fresh Desk is an independent application that we've integrated with the CUSP site just to help us manage some of the help desk functions. Just to help manage help desk functions. So if anybody is interested in participating, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at our email, which is just cusp@thefdp.org. Next slide, please. So the pilot phase, we're going to run the pilot for about a month. We'll then kind of review results and make any adjustments as necessary. Following that, we'll be ready to open the site up to the community, which is awesome. And so we're anticipating that we'll be able to do that in the second half of this year. Rollout will occur in 2 phases. During the first phase, the site will be opened up to FDP member institutions. And then in the second phase, it'll be opened up to any organization that would like to participate. During both of those phases, we'll most likely onboard institutions in cohorts of 10 or 20, just to make sure that they're getting the support that they need as they get into the system and get comfortable. All of those plans and details are still very much in the planning phases. So as we get closer to each of those phases, we'll certainly update the community on plans and information for how they can join if they're interested. And I think that's all that we had. So I'll just say thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions in chat or at the end.
Any questions, anybody? We'll probably have some time at the end also. Well, thank you, Aubrey, and thank you for your perseverance. It's been a long, difficult, very complex project, and we're really excited to see it come to fruition, so thanks. Okay, so next we have an update from our Open Government Research Administration Data Subcommittee of the Research Administration Committee. Stephanie, Andy, and Richard Fenger, I'm not sure which one is taking the lead, but I see both of your faces, so on to you.
Thank you, Alex. Howdy, folks. We are Open Government. I'm one of the co-chairs. We have not updated this group in a while. We've been a little MIA during the virtual era. So we wanted to pop in today and share some of what's been going on, because we have not been idle during this time, and refresh kind of where we're heading, remind you that we exist, and do a little bit of advertising at some of our efforts. Next slide, please. Just a reminder of who we are and what we are at this point. We're really a group that is trying to produce evidence by virtue of collection of data that demonstrates burden around particular activities. Our most recent activity has been around the letter of credit survey, which has been over the course of several years, which has spawned several other activities, and quite honestly includes some loose ends that we're trying to tie up, but we'll be sharing more of that over time. But really, it allowed us to focus in on a specific activity, run a survey in which we collected data around that activity, and then we went ahead and provided an analysis of that activity, boiling it down to where points in the process were more burdensome than others, arriving at kind of an analytical write-up, which is close to available. So if you want to know more about the Open Government folks and what we're trying to accomplish, you can visit our website, which has just been posted into chat and is on the slide. And you might get a glimpse into that LOC write-up. There's definitely a link in there, wink, wink. Next slide, please. Next slide. Something going on?
Sorry, my internet just cut out.
Oh,
there.
Okay.
Are you back, Sarah? Uh-oh.
If you can enable participant
Anybody
screen share,
I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let me get up the presentation.
Sarah, if you need, I can jump in and share at any time.
Next slide.
Yes, please. Okay, so this is a little bit more of an abstract concept for some of the groups, but in the experience with the LOC, it felt like there was a need, or it just seemed like we were providing value by having the community get together and actually talk about data around administration. So folks started sharing their business process, comparing notes, and then really sharing expertise. So we felt that if we put data at the center kind of as a tentpole activity for FDP, that folks that are data interested or are currently using data to understand their business process, using it to judge effectiveness and efficiency, folks that have creative dashboards that they monitor for their business process or anything along those lines, might want to get together and talk about some of that stuff. So we're going to provide that venue. And we'll do it in the month running up to May. So we haven't kicked it off yet. But for those folks that are interested, we encourage you to either contact us or use our listserv address to get involved. But the idea is that the community would get together and talk about data and show each other their local solutions, talk about their local business process, and try to elevate some things that might be of interest to the entire community, which we might show at a later date, that sort of thing. Stephanie, anything you want to add there?
Only that this is really a great breeding ground for our future ideas and working groups and could lead to new pilots as we go forward. So please join us.
Okay, I just saw the chat say that the LOC survey link wasn't working. It was working in preview last night, so I'll have to look back at that. Sorry, I'll get that fixed right after the meeting. Okay, next slide. We have two new efforts kicking off, and we've spent a lot of time arriving at these efforts. We spent a lot of time talking to folks that are interested in the open government discussion and the data discussion. We brought together folks from previous efforts, and we brought together folks from the volunteer survey that was sent out a while ago, where folks raised their hand and said they'd be interested in open government or data type stuff. So brought together a large collection of folks from pretty much everywhere. And we assessed our running list of things that we might want to tackle in the lens of collecting evidence and that sort of thing. And we've arrived at the top two, and we have volunteerism, where folks are going to take the lead on these efforts. The efforts weren't quite ready to kick off for the January meeting, but we're hopeful to be kicking them off soon. The paperwork and justifications and kind of just coming together around the understanding of the efforts has been happening, and we think that should happen in fairly short order, that we'll kick these off officially. But the HERD survey is a survey of the HERD survey, is one might guess. And really, it's an attempt not to look at it from the kind of blatant, how long does it take to fill the thing out? But it's more of the data quality. What is it asking for? Is what's being returned what's really expected and useful? How is the data quality itself? Is it useful? Is it comparable across institutions? Is it reliable? Is it repeatable? All of those fundamentals around good use of data is something that we want to determine whether or not the HERD is kind of living up to that. We've started laying the groundwork. We've met with NSF and folks that own the HERD a couple of times, and they're raring to go as participants, or at least adjacent participants. So we're looking forward to kicking that off, and you can see the co-chair names here. Stephanie, anything you'd like to add around this one?
This is actually really exciting because it's a new way to look at a different community of practice and how well it works and the quality of data through the quantification of the process. So just like we did in the letter of credit survey, we anticipate that there will be a community of practice around those of us at our institutions that are intimately familiar with completing the HERD survey, who will be very interested in helping this conversation move forward. And I've stuck our co-chair names and emails in the link in the chat.
Yeah. And I just saw Joshua's chat item there. So I'll take your name down, Joshua, but the listserv or contacting any one of us is a way to get going. Next slide, please. Our second effort is a little bit different, and it's very exciting because it's the first time that we're launching something from the faculty/PI perspective. And you'll see the NSPM 33 there. And we use the word related because it's more related to all of the activities that a faculty member or a PI is asked to do when they were kind of given a more of a regulatory task of update this or fill in that, or any of those administrative tasks that are additive over time. So in relation to the profile side of life, this group is going to look into what the effort looks like to maintain all of these things, how additive it really is, and size it through evidence for burden, and see if we can have a discussion about making some of these things more efficient and effective if there's an opportunity for that. So you can see our co-chairs here have been established, and they're going to be taking volunteerism for building out their work group as well, just like the herd. Is there anything you want to add to that, Stephanie?
Yeah, this one is really an area that we're looking forward to lots of collaboration with other committees within FDP as well, especially the faculty committee, but also ERA and research security and anyone in compliance. So the more folks that can join us to help figure out how to engage our faculty in this working group, the better. All are welcome.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. Oop, one back, yeah, there you go. So here's the little more formal introduction to the leads for each of the efforts, just so you can get a background on where they're coming from and their contact information if you'd like to contact them. Of course, that will be as part of the slide deck and the recording. The next slide, please. And here are the co-chairs for OG-RAD in general, and you're more than welcome to contact any one of us if you'd like. Avi was unfortunately not able to attend January's meeting. He's, I think, out doing family stuff. So
we would be remiss not to mention the CUSP on behalf of Avi.
All right. So that was our skinny down reminder that we exist, and then a little update on what we're planning on doing. We're much more than that, and the website should accomplish that. I apologize for the website. It feels like it's still walking into a dentist office, and we're working on that over time. So thank you.
Okay, well, great. Thanks, Stephanie and Richard. That was a great update. So we do have a little bit of time. So I think Michelle and I wanted to just provide a little bit more details. Initially, I think we should talk about the May meeting. Just so you know, the May meeting is actually from Wednesday, May 24th, beginning with a welcome reception. So around 5 usually, and then full day of meetings on Thursday. And then we generally adjourn about around noon on the following day, which would be May 26th. So I just want to let you know that. And when Michelle and I mentioned this during our opening welcome, we got a good number of feedback, people concerned that we didn't mention anything about a virtual component. And I just wanted to reassure you of a couple things. That of course we're going to look into it. We were meeting with the hotel and looking at what type of technology upgrades they perhaps have done since COVID. But also that we participation in a survey, we formed a Reimagining FDP meetings working group, and they are not finished with their business. They're continuing to analyze and look at the details of the types of feedback we got from everybody and what we can do in the future. Right now with the May meeting, this contract has been in place since probably 2018. So we're a little bit limited on, well, first of all, the time, because it takes a very long time to identify hotels that can accommodate 400 or more participants. but also we're locked in with the hotel. So the hotel is going to dictate to some extent to what extent we can be more flexible and with the times when it comes to virtual options. But in any case, we will continue what we used to do pre-COVID, which was to record at least one or more of our plenary sessions. And again, there's a lot of different options that our working group are looking at. And I'm going to let Michelle kind of jump in and add any details that she would like to share regarding options.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think you captured what'll be important. We have to roll back time to think about the last in-person meeting, to remember what a fantastic job the communications committee does of taking notes at the in-person meetings and sharing those notes of the sessions online, along with the materials that are provided at the sessions. So at the worst case scenario is that we have a combination of videotaped sessions for the big plenaries, and then the materials that are prepared by the presenters along with the notes that are taken of the meeting, so that you can be kept up to date about what's happening at the meetings. Our hope is to be able to do a little bit of concurrent streaming. We'll see what we'll know more what the hotel can accommodate and at what cost point when we visit in February to see the whole venue. As Alex noted, we haven't yet secured a hotel for subsequent meetings. And so once we have a finalized sort of set of recommendations and discuss with the executive committee what our final options are, we'll be able to communicate more readily what to anticipate on an annual cycle for our meetings. We are planning to elicit input from the membership prior to the May meeting, trying to get in front of the numbers of people who may be staying in the hotel. So look for a message from us relatively soon after this meeting to try to gauge whether or not you're planning to attend in person. When we reserved this hotel prior to COVID, it was also prior to the beginning of phase 7. So we only had 160 or maybe 155 institutions at that time. We're now 255 institutions. So the growth in the size of the FDP, but also combined with COVID travel restrictions or financial restrictions that may be in place at your institutions, leaves us with some uncertainty about how many people we expect to see in May. So we're trying to resolve that by getting information from everybody. So when you do receive a call for information, please let us know what your plans are so that we can have a better accounting of what to anticipate in terms of the scale of in-person participation in May. Having said that, we're thrilled to be able to come back in May in person, and what it will enable more so than any other component of our meetings is the sort of both informal networking that we strive to create as an environment for our members, as well as all of the working groups, which have not had as much of a time to meet. So we're very much looking forward to that, and stay tuned because we'll be on this immediately after this meeting. Alex, I'm turning it back to you.
Yes, so absolutely excited to see everybody and hoping that you can give us some feedback because there really is a lot of uncertainty. The other topic that we briefly mentioned during our welcome was the replacement of our executive director, and recognizing that David Wright had been with us, excellent executive director for, decades or a decade and a half. A lot had changed since then. So we did spend some time to assess the needs of the organization. As Michelle mentioned, we've grown substantially just in this phase. And then, 15 years ago, we were a much smaller organization with very different needs. So we did, we drafted a job description that I'm sure all of you saw because we sent it out broadly and asked for nominations. We used our our tool to get lots of information. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. You know, it's not a survey, Michelle. Thought exchange. Right. We use thought exchange. So we sent out a thought exchange to all of our leadership. So this went to the co-chairs of all the different committees and subcommittees, just getting a feel for what everybody thought. Michelle and I both had a strong inclination of what we thought FDP needs for continuity and to bring the organization success throughout the, forever. So we did that. We drafted the job description, sent it out broadly. We got some great applicants. And as Michelle mentioned, we had two people that from our executive committee, Melissa Korf and David Robinson, who agreed to co-chair. And we found several other at-large members. Michelle listed who they were, but so we felt that we had pretty good broad representation. And so we've moved through the process, and we're hoping very soon that we will be able to announce a new executive director. And certainly by, I don't want to jinx myself, maybe I should knock on wood, by our May in-person meeting. Michelle, do you want to add anything? Right, knock on wood.
Well, we really appreciate the very hard work that the search committee did to be able to identify a short list of candidates and interview them. And just to reiterate, Melissa Korf and David Robinson are members of the executive committee of the FDP, and we formed a committee under their leadership. We want to thank publicly Stephanie Brock, Jamie Sprague, Vonda Durer for their participation on the committee. They worked hard and had to do a lot of work right at the break when everything is supposed to be winding down, and they ended up having to add, a whole meeting series at the end of last year to help keep us on track. And the idea here is that when we do move forward with a selection, which we hope to be able to do in the very near future, there will be a transition period where Dick Seligman, who has been, acting very graciously in the acting role of executive director, will help to do some of the transition. I would also remind everybody that David Wright has also very graciously agreed to continue working on managing the finances of the FDP in a step back role since he retired as being the executive director on a full-time basis. So we want to have some transition time so that the new person will be able to pick up the baton, so to speak, and move the organization forward. And I am with you. I'm very hopeful that by May we will have a new executive director in place, and that everybody will get a chance to meet that individual at the May meetings, and that'll be a very nice way for us to kick off our return to in-person. So we're hoping those two things converge on each other, which is the plan.
I guess the only other thing I wanted to point out, it has been an area of focus for us this phase, is volunteerism. And we brought up you'll see the slides, there'll be a link for submitting your interest within the portal for volunteering. So don't forget about that. Thanks Jean Herman and her whole group and the membership committee, because there's a lot of work. As you can see, all of our committees are very active, and they can always use additional help and expertise. So I encourage you to really think about volunteering. And that's about all I have to say, Michelle.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Alex. From a faculty perspective, we seek faculty leadership in a number of committee roles as either a co-chair or a liaison, depending on the committee and the time commitment that someone may have. So I want to make a special plea to my faculty colleagues to think about where they might be able to contribute in the committee structure. And you can either fill out the form, or if you want to contact me or Robert Nobles, the vice chair of the faculty committee, please don't hesitate to do so. And I also want to point out that, one of the faculty priorities has been to really build out the relationship between the Federal Demonstration Partnership and the National Academies through our relationship with GWIR. and now the Division of Policy and Global Affairs. We're very, very pleased that Michael Nestor, who's the new director of the board of GWIR, joined us yesterday for the faculty forum. I thought it was a very lively conversation, and we look forward to increasing the types of projects that we can do in partnership with the academies, who views the FDP as a really important sounding board and focus group for some of the work that they're doing. And then finally, when we return in person, we will be bringing our working group on the faculty workload survey together. We have a need to really think through the way in which we want to implement this survey, and the time to do that will be when we are in person. So we're eager to get that started because of how important that work is for the FDP, and benchmarking all the great work that everybody does here, and hopefully doing all we can to keep administrative burden to a minimum and support all of us as a collective organization in advancing the best possible quality research.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have any questions? You know how to find us, reach out anytime. If you ever have questions or ideas, love to hear from you. Okay, well, I guess then we will see you at 3:30. Don't miss it. Alicia Nodler. I've heard her spoke previously, and it really I felt that FDP and her initiative in the Office of Integrative Activities are really complementary. So I think you'll really find it interesting. So I look forward to seeing you there. See you later. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for coming.